Hi, Laurelyn.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Laurelyn is going to be the moderator for this session, so I'm just going to step to the backstage and let you all take it from here.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Laura McDaniel. I've been working in 3D printing since it was called rapid prototyping. So about 1999. Medical is my special focus area. And I'm pleased to be joined by three outstanding medical professionals. So we'll go through and have them introduce themselves. First up, Kelly Knights.
Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Kelly Knights, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Victoria Ham Project. So Victoria Ham Project is a Canadian charity that provides 3D printed prosthetic arms to amputees in need worldwide. And our organization's main goal is technology transfer. We work with existing prosthetic clinics and provide them with the training and equipment to use 3D technology, such as 3D printing and 3D scanning, to create and offer these highly functional prosthetic arms in areas where they're needed most. So my work focuses mostly on using 3D printing as a tool to provide cost-effective healthcare solutions that are scalable in developing countries and low-income communities. I've worked mostly with FDM printing and PLA and polypropylene, and I've developed a couple different softwares and workflows to make designing and manufacturing these customized medical devices very easy and straightforward.
Very important work. And next up, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. My name is Rachel Tobin, and I work with Polyunity Tech Inc. In our company first. Essentially, we do, as you might imagine, but our focus is really on reducing frustrations and procurement. So we use additive manufacturing to work alongside frontline healthcare providers like lab technologists, nurses, doctors, infrastructure staff, pretty much everyone under the roof of a hospital to help them solve problems that they face that might be leading to inefficient workflows, long lead times on repair parts, things keeping machines out of service, and things like that.
Terrific. I know it's very exciting work working with that group of people. And Jacqueline.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Lee. I'm so happy to be here alongside Kelly and Rachel and yourself. I'm the CEO of Polyunity, so I get to work with Rachel every day. And just to build a little on what Rachel said, we're providing a fully managed additive service to hospitals. So right from design, prototype, manufacture, and order fulfillment. So we take care of everything. And we just interact with healthcare professionals and get their ideas and their feedback and then deliver the products right in their hands in a really, really quick, efficient way that healthcare is not used to with innovation. So it's super exciting. I think we've developed over 200 products to date. And we're excited about where it all goes.
It is a very exciting community to work with. So let's start off with the medical space. And when I say medical, it includes dental, it includes what's happening at the hospitals, at the device manufacturers, and even into the biofabrication area. So some reports have indicated that the medical space is the most mature in their use of 3D printed, followed closely by aerospace. I have some thoughts on why that is, but why do you think that 3D printing and healthcare are such a great match? Who wants to jump in first?
Maybe I can get started. I think medicine, as we all know, is such an intimate field. I mean, it's so independent to them, though we have so many shared experiences together. That's where 3D printing really shines. I mean, it excels at doing very customized parts, especially in low volumes and quickly. So the match there is beautiful for those higher customizations and get it when you need it. Hospitals, of course, are so pressed for space. Inventory is a problem. So just to be able to print something on demand when you need it with a 3D printer is really powerful.
That makes so much sense. Kelly, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo a bit of what Rachel just said, but definitely 3D printing with that personalization and the really organic shapes that you can create in small batches is just so relevant when it comes to medical devices. For in prosthetics, in like the O&P field, for example, like every limb socket has to be completely custom to each person, and no person is ever going to have the same body dimensions and shapes. So 3D printing means that we can really match something to a patient without needing to settle for a closest fit. And I feel like that's why it extends so well to other medical applications as well, because it's every patient has their own needs and their own body, and 3D printing can really adapt to that in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. With the enormous complexity and volume of problems that healthcare are faced with, digital design and additive manufacturing now represent one of the most cost-efficient and cost-effective ways of creating new innovations. So more importantly, the ability to rapidly create prototypes, test and iterate on those novel products using 3D printing can dramatically increase the rate of innovation approval and adoption. So we're getting solutions approved right now and in the hands of actual frontline healthcare workers in hours and days instead of months and years.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Just a quick tidbit: the first two commercially installed SLA machines were December 1988. Not
Wow.
unexpectedly, GM was one of them. The other one was Baxter Healthcare. So healthcare's been there from the very beginning. Just to add just a couple of more, I think what we've seen on the device manufacturing side is the ability to create in one step those complex structures that are needed for in-bone growth and other structures has been critical to the maturity level, particularly in the orthopedics area, where just more efficient way to produce those implants, knee replacements, hip replacements, that sort of thing. So very exciting. The possibilities are incredible. Okay, so along with that, so following up on all that little history and why it's there, who wants to step up first and talk about some of the trends you're seeing, some of the innovations you're seeing, whether it's at the hospital, whether it's working directly with patients, whether it's devices, dental, or even biofabrication?
Yeah, sure. I can take that one on first. So I can talk a lot about the O&P industry, and I definitely will. But I just want to start too. Our organization does work very closely with the University of Victoria, so I have been exposed as well to a lot of different researchers and like up and coming startups that are working in the 3D printing space. And I specifically wanted to mention Axolotl Biosciences. They're doing bioprinting for neural tissues and for treating Alzheimer's. I think bioprinting is really up and coming, and that's going to be incredible to see, especially in hospital settings. And I can't wait to hear what the rest of the people here have to say about that. But in the O&P industry, especially, I have noticed a huge change, especially in the last even 5 or 3 years, how industry professionals are seeing 3D printing. I found when I first started getting started and 3D printing was kind of beginning to be commercialized and desktop printing was available to hobbyists, there was a really big pushback and really negative connotation associated with 3D printing in the O&P community. Most prosthetics are created using traditional manufacturing methods, so a lot of plaster casting and fiberglass and heat molding. And creating a limb socket really is a work of art, and it's a very specialized process that prosthetists train for a really long time to do. And a lot of the earlier 3D printed prosthetics were open source, they were done by hobbyists, and they didn't involve the clinician in the process. So a lot of the hands were breaking or the sockets weren't fitting correctly. And so it reflected very poorly, I think, on 3D printing as a whole. So it's been really incredible to see, like very, very recently, a lot of the community embracing 3D printing. I recently attended an O&P conference and there was 3D printers everywhere. And I think so many more clinicians are being trained to use 3D printing and being trained to use 3D scanning and 3D technology, and just seeing it as more of another tool that they can use in their clinics alongside the traditional techniques instead of a competing market. And I've seen some people use it for just making test sockets, and I've seen other people using it for splints and orthotics, and other people just completely taking it on and making new products with the printers that they've been using. So I think that's been really incredible, and it's been great to see kind of the positive trend. I think nearly all the prosthetic companies now are using 3D printing, at least for some of the components, just with that ability to make these really, really organic shapes. And I think, especially with the rise of the more fancier 3D printers, like the Icarus and the Multijet, many clinicians are starting to see these like high quality prints, high quality parts, and they can do really complicated prints like spinal bracing. I think the trends will continue to go upwards, and I can see a lot more people getting to use these new technologies and making things that might be better than before.
Absolutely. You talked about O&P, and I oftentimes think about healthcare expands to our furry friends. And there's a startup in Poland is focused specifically on orthotics and prosthetics for dogs. So just a warm, fuzzy feeling to see that too. So Kelly, your mic is off. So what are your thoughts? What are some of the things you're seeing?
Rachel, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Kelly really spoke to it is and technology and how we do with it. And one of the trends we're seeing, especially as we're expanding as a company, is that every department that we talk to has a different use case for the services that we're offering. So it's been really exciting, especially from an engineering point of view, all the different projects that come through the doors from people in departments like newborn screening, biomedical engineering, cancer care, infrastructure, and everything in between. So the more we learn about 3D printing and the more we engage frontline healthcare workers, it's kind of just a snowball effect where everyone is coming up with different things they can do. It's like a curiosity epidemic in a really nice way.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more, Rachel. In our company specifically, we're focused on class or class 1 medical devices. So I think that's a little bit new. There's not a lot of people focused on that specifically. And the standard polymers work great for many parts and products that we're doing. We see flexibles being used in an increasing number of applications, whether that be TPU or other materials. There's a real desire for on-demand production at or near the point of consumption, which is important. So we've embedded ourselves inside the hospitals and really see ourselves as partners of the hospitals. And then there's a mindset shift through all of this. Nurses and doctors, well, nurses specifically, and maybe lab technicians, a lot have never dealt with 3D printing. So it's exciting to open their minds and really impress them with the first few TIPE prototypes. And now the ideas are regularly coming in, and they see ourselves as solution providers with them. We're seeing more requests for materials that can be sterilized and that can survive under high degrees of temperature. I think that's really interesting. I think there's the potential that we can really produce, we can, instead of single-use products, we can replace them with 3D printed devices that can be sanitized and reused over and over again. So there's that whole environmental aspect to it as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm going to jump in with just a few things I've seen from traditional device manufacturers. Seen new device designs with the ability to put those porous structures in places they couldn't done before. I've worked a lot with Naomi Murray at Stryker, and she talks about they have a branded name for it, for the titanium printing and doing those sorts of structures. Seen some clinical trials with 3D printed bone scaffolds and things of that nature. So the step just before true bioprinting, so building those things that help the body regenerate its own tissues. And in 2022, I'm just wrapping up the year in review for medical on some new inks that can encapsulate tissues and cells and seeds that gets us closer to actually bioprinting tissues that can sustain themselves and actually be implanted. So just a very exciting time. So I'm going to step back based on something you said, Kelly, about materials that can be sterilizable, and ask you about the challenges because that's definitely a challenge for the entire community, is, what challenges do medical professionals face and using 3D printing? Do you think they're similar, or there's some unique things about medical that need to be understood? I know early days in the pandemic, there was, I've got a home 3D printer, I want to print. So it's like, ooh, maybe not so much. So who wants to jump in first and talk about some of the challenges?
Yes, I can start us off quickly, but yes, absolutely, Laura Lynn. And that's something that, especially as we build our catalog of products, we're working directly with infection prevention and control to ensure we're meeting all the standards, of course. But it is a challenge, especially with the traditional and very widespread technology of FDM printing and filament printing. You're printing with thermoplastics, so of course there's only so far you can go. But it's amazing, new technologies. I think Kelly spoke to some of them as well, like SLS printing with powders, and it really breaks open a whole new category. We've started experimenting as well with some and the biocompatible resins there. And I mean, it's exciting to see where the technology is going to go in the next number of years.
Definitely exciting to see what will happen. Kelly, you have any thoughts on the challenges?
For sure. Yeah. So I find a lot of the challenges that we face is that a lot of the clinicians that we work with have never used 3D printing before partnering with us. So a lot of the challenges come from learning all this new terminology, learning the new processes. And a lot of FDM printers, as many people know, are quite finicky. There's a lot of settings that you have to get down perfectly. And some of the softwares can seem really intimidating if you haven't worked in the 3D design and CAD space before. So I think the reliability of the 3D printers is pretty huge to consider. If there's something that you don't need to waste a lot of time maintaining, that can be really helpful. And so kind of choosing a printer that you know will work for the professionals themselves. And then I think just having some more simplified UI designs and some lower barriers to entry, having these workflows and trainings in processes, so it's a little bit easier to kind of skip that barrier to entry. Yeah, it's a little tricky to learn all the new 3D printing processes at first. And so I think that can be really challenging when you're used to doing things really hands-on and having that feedback to go to a computer and just to be visually seeing everything. It can be really difficult.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with what Kelly said exactly. As you mentioned, Laura Lynn, I mean, a lot of people took on 3D printing as a hobby, maybe during COVID or as the technologies developed, and it's not that easy, right? If we're trying to print high quality, high fidelity medical devices that can be used on hospital floors. So it's certainly not handing over the design files and leaving it to healthcare professionals to print on their own. So, I mean, at this point, this is why we're offered a fully managed service, and why we're embedding ourselves with our people and our equipment in the hospital so that we can hand over finished products for them to use. So that's an education piece. As much as we want them involved in the process and excited about what we're doing, it's still very fully managed. And those guys are busy and overworked and overburdened themselves. They are experts in patient care, not in 3D printing. So, I mean, you're seeing hospitals investing somewhat in some 3D printing equipment, a lot of times in the biomedical departments. But then how do you get access throughout the hospital with just those limited few biomedical departments? And then how do you share those solutions across to other healthcare organizations? So those are the challenges and gaps that we see and that we're trying to fill.
Absolutely. And all of that is consistent with, we do an annual survey of the medical community every year. The challenges that they have at the top of the list include, workforce development. So, as you said, Kelly, that it's a pretty unique kind of situation. You need the healthcare professional, you need the engineer, you need to put that together in one mind to make it so a lot of collaboration going on. The materials that are not only sterilizable but can be biocompatible. Um, Definitely some interesting things going on there, and just understanding the regulatory compliance needs, as well as the lack of specific standards. Well, having worked in standards, I don't. Yeah, there's still so many more needed, but there's a lack of awareness of what's already available, and that kind of leads into um, the next question. I've skipped a question we talked about, and I will go back to it, but that kind of leads us right into efforts by the community to address these challenges. I have a lot of things that I'm aware of, but I'll fill in what you don't. But tell me what groups you're involved in, what resources you're turned to, who you're watching to see what they're doing to just make more sense of all the things that are needed. So, Kelly, you definitely have to have some things you're watching to do the best work. What are you looking to? Who's doing what?
So I guess I'll just start with what we as Victoria Ham Project are doing for the clinicians we're working with. As I said, we try to develop a lot of different workflows and softwares in-house to make some of these challenges easier. So for example, what our team has done, because as you mentioned, clinicians are really overworked, they are patient care focused, and they don't really have time to be finagling with a bunch of things. So we created a front-end user experience application that we provide to our partners. So they're able to type in the patient's measurements, and it uses the Autodesk Fusion 360 API to generate this custom socket on its own. It really streamlines the process of creating that 3D printed socket. And then they're able to just make little selections about what they want for their prosthetic hand. They can select different features, different risks, and then it just kind of spits them all out, the pre-sliced G-code. So they don't need to worry about getting these mesh files. They don't need to worry about the slicing. They don't need to worry about the settings. We also try to prepare them if they do need to create a custom component, that we will give them just settings prepared for any of the printers they're using. We also make sure to have very consistent printers in all of the different countries we work in. So if something goes wrong, we're experts, we can help. We also have resources and manuals that are trying to be more IKEA style, easy to assemble, easy to follow. And I think having those really good manuals and instructions are really helpful, as well as having forum communities. I find even on the Ultimaker website, the forums are such a valuable place for hobbyists and people using it professionally to share what they found works and what they found don't work, and their designs that they've used to mod their own 3D printers. I think having that community-centered effort where I find there's a lot of people that are really looking to help each other and looking to support each other. And I think that is so valuable to address the challenges that people face when they're first getting into it, to have that community backing of people that are so much more experienced and have that. And then also just the development of desktop 3D printing in general. I think a lot of the newer models that are coming out have really addressed a lot of the issues that people were fighting with before, like under extrusion and nozzle clogging. I think a lot of the newer designs know that that's an issue, and so they make it really easy to swap in and out. And I think that'll make it really nicer learning going forward.
I think that's so true. Everything you touched on, Kelly, really resonates as well as what we're trying to do here. And I think it kind of is the same message of while the technology is improving, we're doing what we can to try and help out healthcare, take advantage of it kind of in the meantime, while it's still becoming a set it and forget it kind of technology, which anyone who's used a 3D printer knows we're not quite there yet, of course. but all of the things that you also mentioned, I've gotten so excited. I think I kind of started to lose my my train of thought here a little bit. But from everything from working directly with healthcare providers, just to understand their needs and to kind of take that burden off. And even something else you mentioned about kind of getting that widespread along kind of like forums. That's also a little bit of what Polunity is about. So our online web portal that Jacqueline mentioned a little while ago is meant to be kind of a peer network of peer-reviewed products. And even one of the most recent clients we started working with had a suite of products that they'd been developing independently that they knew had a great impact on the rest of the hospital community, but they didn't have the capacity to help spread that reach. So I think also providing those platforms for the peer-reviewed, peer-validated products to make their way around to other healthcare providers in the country and beyond that, I think that's a really important way to get ahead of 3D printing and leverage it for all it can without dumping the load of filament issues and print jams and things on healthcare providers who are already so busy.
Yeah, exactly. I echo everything Kelly and Rachel have said. And having that forum and that peer-to-peer network connections. I mean, when hospitals are using 3D printed devices, or multiple hospitals are using 3D printed devices, it lowers that barrier to entry. It makes 3D printed devices become more acceptable if the hospital is not quite there yet in their learning journey of what this technology can do. And you're seeing innovation departments or centers being set up in healthcare organizations across the country, across North America. So I think that's a new trend, and it's responsive, and they're building up teams. Lots of work left to do in those areas as far as giving them the proper resources and proper budgets and decision-making authority to actually procure and implement these solutions. But it's a big step towards hospitals realizing that one of the main ways that they're going to combat rising costs and to be able to deliver the same or better healthcare with less resources and money is adopting innovation. So that's our key avenue into healthcare organizations at the moment. There's other organizations that are federally funded in Canada, such as Can Health and OBio. And their main objective is to reduce the barriers for hospitals adopting innovative technologies and really help stream that path to procurement. So lots of interesting things developing from government and from our healthcare partners that will help companies like us get in there.
Absolutely. So I'm going to speak from the US side, both the hospital, the bio, and the device side. There's so much that has been happening. December 2017, the FDA's technical guidance on additive manufacturing focused primarily on device manufacturers. Last year, the FDA released a discussion paper on their concept framework for point of care 3D printing. A lot of discussion on that. Point of care also, I have to mention the RSNA 3D Printing Special Interest Group. Okay, RSNA, Radiological Society of North America, but they are very international. That seems to be in the US where the hospitals are focused, because radiology seems to be the center, the match between medical imaging and what comes out of it. They've done a lot of great things. Education, appropriateness for anatomical models, that sort of thing. They've also worked with the AMA to get some research level codes that can lead to reimbursement within the US. Just a lot of great things and resources there, as well as development of best practices. Standards on the device side, a lot of organizations doing that. I have to mention the America Makes an ANSI Additive Manufacturing Standardization Collaborative, holy cow, or AMSC, kind of a roadmap. And I'm going to take a moment to, we are working on, yes, I'm vice chair of that group, the third version of the roadmap, and trying to redo the medical section. So if you have an interest in that, drop me a note. I'll reach out. And also, if you want to find all of these, you can go to additivemanufacturing.com and go to the resources section. You'll find all sorts of things that'll lead you to all the groups doing so much. And I'm sure I've missed a ton of stuff, but just some great groups of people. I've always known about that 3D printing community that so willing to share information and talk and help you find some pathways, some solutions, so many things. So I want to, before we go to our next question, just want to talk to our audience that we would love to see your questions. We're going to have, a few minutes to take a couple of questions. So go ahead and put them in. So talking about these challenges, all the things we're trying to do, resources to help you. So are there things that you've seen, developments that are enabling, addressing some of these challenges, whether that's technology, materials, software, infrastructure, standards, anything else? What have you seen in the last few years that has really helped move the healthcare area forward? Looking for a volunteer. Rachel's, yeah, I was going to say, Rachel seems to have some notes. Is that one you're ready for, Rachel?
Sure. Kind of as you had mentioned, I think the technology is advancing so quickly, and it's really come a long way from first 3D printers were huge things that would take up the whole room, and it was very hard to get access to. And then they came right down to things that people started associating with little toys kind of thing. And, you use it to make trinkets for around your house. But now the technology is really becoming much more robust as we're all using the technology in our applications, both Kelly and Jacqueline and myself, for end-use consumer parts. So I think the creation of those standards, kind of as you had alluded to, Laura Lynn, is not only helping us make sure we're following the best processes, but it's also a great way to de-risk innovation in the medical setting, as Jacqueline also alluded to. The presence of those standards, I think, also creates kind of that trustworthiness that this is a great technology that we should be taking advantage of, that's safe to take advantage of, and that has a lot of benefits if you believe in it and invest in it. So that's a really big thing that has helped carry us a long way. And as well, at the tail end of what Jacqueline was saying there, procurement and developing new and innovative ways to acquire this type of technology, and the open-mindedness that comes with the innovation and the widespread of conferences like this to help everyone kind of get on the same page about what the industry is actually doing and where it sits. I think that's a big thing, especially in our case, that has propelled us along as a small company trying to expand to the world.
Software, especially for us, has been a main driver increasing the level of adoption and usage of 3D printing systems. We have a full software team here that have been for a couple of years now developing a digital inventory system. It features our product catalogs, it facilitates orderings, it has an idea intake aspect to it, it has a peer-to-peer connection tool. It has process controls, workflows, audits, and increases the use and engagement and reduces the level of subject matter expertise required to use us and participate with us. So skips a whole pile of procurement steps, and it has that full audit and transparency over purchasing and usage and transaction data, so that you can sort of circumvent the entire procurement process and yet satisfy all of the oversight requirements. So that's been a huge driver for us specifically. And then you had the advances in design tools. It's greatly increased the efficiency of product design. It's helped us create over 200 products really quickly, and even customize those, right? When we show bed bumpers that we've developed for one hospital to another, and they have a different type of hospital, really quick and easy for us to customize our designs for their particular brand of stretchers. Printer and print farm automation tools have increased the efficiency and reduced the cost of per part production. And the materials engineering are always pushing the boundaries. Things that Rachel couldn't design a couple of years ago, and ideas that we've shelved, we're now re-looking at again. I mean, we all know in this space here today how fast the technology is increasing and the materials that are available to us. So it's really exciting to see the things that we couldn't do last year are now back on the table.
Yeah, I think just echoing kind of the thoughts that have been voiced already, but I think it is truly just a combination of better printers available, more reliable scanning and softwares, and of course, more interest in 3D printing that's leading to more innovation and more support and more resources available. I guess I also like to emphasize that I think a lot of the actual materials, the filament, there's been a lot of advancements in that in the last few years as well. And I think having these different materials available, you can make a lot nicer parts, a lot more durable parts. And I think I'm really excited to see where the future leads for that and what we could be printing with in the next 5 to 10 years.
Definitely some new solutions available. Some of the things I've seen that are kind of exciting is more 510. I've seen a handful that patient specific has always been kind of the holy grail of devices, and we're seeing some of those come through. The US FDA for 510K clearance. On the hospital side, in collaboration, definitely the work that's being done at Mayo Clinic and the spring of 2019, installing their first metal printer. Very exciting. So the first hospital outside of a government hospital or a hospital connected directly to a university. So that's exciting. But the collaboration between Lima, a medical device company, actually having facility located at the hospital for special surgery to develop those are all things I'm keeping an eye on. So, and just the huge growth of software. From December 2018 there were about 25, and today there's well over 200 software packages or modules specific to 3D printing. So very exciting work. So before I ask our wrap up question, I don't see anything specific in the Q&A, but let's wrap in this one question from Martin into kind of our wrap-up question. So here we are. It's an exciting time to be working with the medical community. From my perspective, it's always one when you talk to people outside of 3D printing, they get right away. You don't have to explain, I made this widget for an airplane kind of thing. They get it. So what are some of the things that you're looking forward to be able to do? Application area you're expecting to grow, new technologies. Kelly already mentioned she's excited to see what we can do next. So, yeah, what are you looking forward to? And let's throw in there, if you have a knowledge of the pharmaceuticals and how, because to date in the US, there's been one 3D printed drug cleared by the FDA. So there seems to be some promise there too. So who wants to be our future fortune teller?
Gosh, what an exciting question. We're certainly excited about the right to repair movement, and even discussion of legislation coming about that helps push that along a little bit faster. I think to date, we've repaired over about 600 pieces of equipment so far and got them back into operation. And just simple things. And it gives the power back to the hospital to use the infrastructure that they have. Tremendous advancements in materials engineering, print capability, speed, software solutions for design, digital inventory and automation. So that's going to continue to reduce the barriers and lower the costs and the speed of adoption. And then the industry-wide digital inventory of parts and products that can be manufactured by these 3D printings. I think that's going to continue to expand exponentially. I think we have 200 products to date. Our goal for 3 years' time, I think, is 5,000. So it's really cool to see that collaboration, those connections happening from hospital to hospital. I think that's just going to have a network effect of idea sharing and ideation together. So I mean, there's no limit. I don't think we could have anticipated that we would be here now when we first started. So I'm super excited to adapt and change as the technology does.
Definitely. Kelly, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I specifically am really looking forward to because I think 3D scanning and 3D printing really work hand in hand, especially when it comes to bracing solutions. I'm really looking forward to advancements in 3D scanning technology specifically. There's kind of been a rising of smartphone scanning options available, and I think that is kind of just starting now, and I expect there's going to be really, really rapid development there, which I think then combined with the development of bigger print bed volumes, I think that'll be a real big game changer for facing more large body bracing and prosthetic solutions.
Absolutely. The scan to print is something we're definitely looking forward to, especially, yeah, just it's so beautiful, even in terms of if you're trying to make something fit something else, just to have a scan of it so you can always look back at it. And you don't need to go bother someone for dimensions. But one thing that also gets me really excited about, which if you ever get the chance to speak to one of the founders of Polyunity, Steve Ryan, he always tells the origin story about how he saw NASA 3D print something in space, and he thought about teleporting medical equipment. And if you can print something in space, why can't you print it in rural Labrador up north in our province? So I'm really excited for the rise of digital libraries and digital inventories and kind of the applications that has in rural communities. Being from a bit of a rural place myself, I think that the impacts go really wide there, especially as the technology becomes something that is set it and forget it, how far we can reach those improved healthcare experiences.
Wow, definitely. You mentioned NASA and remote places, and so very exciting to see all of that come together. I know there's bioprinters on the space station. They're working with remote control. Very exciting stuff to come to help healthcare, whether from the device side, the dental side, to make it more accessible and more precise. And here's Stephanie. Thank you, Jacqueline, Rachel, Kelly. It's been a great discussion. And for our audience, all three of our panelists are actually making presentations later today, so don't miss them. And I'll turn it back to Stephanie.
Thank you, Laurelyn, and thank you all of our panelists.